The dining room smelled like expensive candles and judgment. Catherine Whitmore sat at the head of her mahogany table, a leather folder positioned in front of her like a weapon. I knew what was coming, had known since she'd texted me 3 days ago with the subject line, "Family discussion, attendance mandatory." Marcus squeezed my hand under the table. His father, Robert, sat stone-faced at the other end. His sister, Madison, picked at her salad, smirking like she already knew the punchline to a joke I hadn't heard yet. Catherine cleared her throat, slid the folder across the table toward me. "Jordan, dear, we need to discuss something important before the wedding." I looked at the folder but didn't touch it. "We think it's best, for everyone, if you and Marcus sign a prenuptial agreement, just to keep things clean. You understand." I understood perfectly. They thought I was a gold digger, that I was marrying their son for his money, that my working-class background and state school education made me a threat to their upper-middle-class dental practice fortune. "We've already had our attorney draft something fair," Robert added. "Very standard, just protects what Marcus brings to the marriage." Madison couldn't help herself. "It's nothing personal, just smart business. You'd do the same thing if the situations were reversed." I looked at Marcus. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Okay," I said simply. "Let's do a prenup." The relief on their faces was almost comical. They had no idea what they just agreed to. My name is Jordan Ellis. I'm 31 years old, and most people have no idea who I really am. I grew up in a town outside Columbus, Ohio. My dad worked construction, my mom cleaned houses. We lived paycheck to paycheck in a rental that had more problems than the landlord had excuses. I was good at exactly one thing: computers. Taught myself to code at 12 using library computers and free online courses. Got a full ride to Ohio State studying computer science. Worked 3 jobs through college because the scholarship didn't cover living expenses. Met Marcus junior year. He was funny, kind, completely unpretentious despite coming from money. We bonded over late-night coding sessions and a shared love of terrible sci-fi movies. After graduation, Marcus got a job at his family's business, Whitmore Dental Group, a small chain of dental practices across Ohio. Good job, stable, safe. I went a different direction, started a software company with my roommate. We built an AI-driven scheduling platform for medical practices, worked 100-hour weeks, lived on ramen and ambition. Marcus supported me through all of it, believed in me when investors didn't, celebrated small wins when everyone else saw small failures. 3 years later, we sold the company. The number was $47 million. My share, after taxes and paying back investors, $26 million. I was 28 years old. Marcus knew I'd sold the company, knew I was comfortable, but I'd never told him the exact numbers, never told anyone. I invested carefully, lived quietly, and kept building wealth through angel investments in other startups. Current net worth, $52 million. I still drove my Honda Civic, still lived in my modest 2-bedroom apartment, still wore simple clothes and shopped at Target. Not because I had to, because I wanted to. Money doesn't have to announce itself, and I'd learned that people's true characters show when they think you have nothing they want. The Whitmore family had shown me their true characters for 3 years. Now it was time to return the favor. The first time I met Marcus's family, I wore jeans and a sweater from Target, drove up to their house in Bexley, a wealthy Columbus suburb, in my 10-year-old Honda. Catherine opened the door, looked me up and down, and her smile went tight. "You must be Jordan. Marcus has told us so much about you." The way she said "so much" sounded like a warning. Dinner that night was an interrogation disguised as small talk. Where did I grow up? What did my parents do? Where did I go to school? Each answer made Catherine's smile grow tighter. When I mentioned my dad was in construction, Madison actually laughed. "Oh, so you're like really working class?" "Madison," Marcus said sharply. "What? I'm just saying it's refreshing. Usually Marcus dates girls from similar backgrounds." Catherine changed the subject quickly, but the message was clear. I wasn't one of them. I was an outsider, a project, someone Marcus would hopefully grow tired of. That was 3 years ago. 3 years of subtle digs and backhanded compliments, 3 years of being made to feel less than, 3 years of watching them treat me like I should be grateful they tolerated my presence. Marcus saw some of it, defended me sometimes, but he was conflict-averse, especially with his mother. And I never pushed because I didn't need their approval. But now we were engaged, and suddenly their tolerance had shifted to fear. Fear that I'd get my hands on Marcus's trust fund, his stake in the family business, his future inheritance. They had no idea what the reality was exactly backwards. Marcus proposed 6 months ago. Simple proposal. Just us at the park where we'd had our first date. No flash, no Instagram moment, just love. His family's reaction was less simple. Catherine's first words were, "Well, this is sudden." We'd been together for 9 years. Madison pulled Marcus aside at the engagement party, and I overheard her say, "Are you sure, like really sure? Because once you're married, it's complicated to undo." Robert gave me a stiff hug and whispered, "Welcome to the family. We'll take care of the legal stuff before the wedding." Even then, I knew what legal stuff meant. The comments got more pointed after that. Catherine asking if I'd thought about a budget for the wedding, then offering to pay since your family probably can't afford what Marcus is used to. Madison showing her engagement ring, 3 carats from Tiffany's, then looking at my simple band and saying, "Oh, that's cute, very understated, practical." At Christmas, they gave Marcus a Rolex. They gave me a $50 Kohl's gift card. Marcus was embarrassed, apologized, said they didn't mean it that way. But they did mean it. Every gift, every comment, every subtle dig was designed to remind me of my place. I didn't fight back, didn't defend myself, just smiled and thanked them and let them believe whatever they wanted to believe. Because I knew something they didn't. The prenup conversation was coming, and when it did, I'd be ready. The day after the dinner, I called my attorney. Not just any attorney, Rebecca Chen, senior partner at one of the top corporate law firms in Chicago. She'd handled my company's sale and managed my investment portfolio. I told her they wanted a prenup. She said, "Good, you should have one anyway." I told her they think they're protecting him from me. Rebecca laughed. "Oh, this is gonna be fun. When's the meeting?" They suggested next week. They're using their family attorney, some guy who handles their business contracts. Perfect. I'll draft our disclosure documents. How much do you want to reveal? Everything. Every asset, every investment, every dollar. You're sure? You've been pretty private about this. I'm sure. They need to see exactly who they've been condescending to for 3 years. I'll make it very detailed, very thorough. Very impossible to ignore. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you. This is the most fun I've had all month. Marcus and I talked that night. Really talked. First time we'd had a serious conversation about his family's behavior. "I'm sorry," he said. "I should have said something, should have defended you more." "Why didn't you?" He was quiet for a long time. "Because it was easier not to. Because fighting with my mom is exhausting. Because I kept thinking they'd come around eventually. They haven't come around, Marcus. They've gotten worse. I know. The prenup thing is ridiculous. You're not after my money. Actually," I said carefully, "we should talk about that." "About what?" "About my money." He looked confused. "You're doing fine. The company sale was great." "Marcus, I got $26 million from the sale. After taxes and investors, that's what I walked away with. And I've been investing it for 3 years. I'm currently worth about $52 million. He stared at me. $52 million? Yes. Dollars? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted you to love me for me, not for what I'm worth. And honestly, I wanted to see how your family treated me when they thought I had nothing they wanted. They've been horrible. Yes, they have." He sat back on the couch, processing. "My trust fund is $850,000. I know. And my salary is $400,000 a year. I know that too. So, without a prenup,
If we got divorced, I'd actually benefit from your wealth, not the other way around. Correct.
He started laughing. Couldn't stop. My mother is trying to protect me from the richest person in the room. She is. This is going to destroy her. Probably. He looked at me seriously. Are you sure you want to marry into this family? Because after they find out, it's going to be bad. I want to marry you. Your family is negotiable. The prenup meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday, 2 p.m., at the Whitmore family attorney's office. I dressed carefully that day. Simple black dress from Target, flats from DSW, my Honda parked next to Catherine's Mercedes in the lot. Marcus and I walked in together. His parents were already there, sitting in the conference room with their attorney, a man in his 60s named Gerald, who looked like he'd rather be on a golf course. Madison arrived late, dressed like she was going to a charity gala. Sorry, traffic was terrible. No one had invited her, but of course she'd come. Wouldn't miss the show. Then Rebecca arrived. She walked in wearing a Tom Ford suit, carrying a leather briefcase that probably cost more than Catherine's car payment. Her assistant followed with a cart full of documents. Catherine's smile faltered. That's quite the entrance for a simple prenup. Rebecca smiled. Ms. Ellis doesn't do simple. We all sat. Gerald cleared his throat. So, we've drafted a straightforward agreement. Mr. Whitmore brings approximately $850,000 in trust assets and a 25% stake in Whitmore Dental Group to the marriage. In the event of divorce, these assets remain his. Ms. Ellis's assets, whatever they may be, remain hers. Clean split. Seems fair, Robert said, looking at me like he expected gratitude. Rebecca pulled out her own documents. Before we proceed, Ohio law requires full financial disclosure from both parties. Shall we start with Ms. Ellis's assets? That's not really necessary, Catherine started. Actually, it's legally required for a valid prenup. I'd hate for this to be challenged later because we skipped proper procedure. Gerald nodded reluctantly. She's right. We should have complete disclosure. Rebecca opened her first folder. Let's begin with liquid assets, Rebecca said, her voice professional and clear. Ms. Ellis maintains checking and savings accounts across 3 banks, totaling $8.2 million. Catherine's coffee cup paused halfway to her mouth. Investment portfolio held with Morgan Stanley. Current value $31.4 million. Diversified across tech stocks, index funds, and blue-chip securities. Robert's pen stopped moving on his legal pad. Real estate holdings. Primary residence, the apartment building at 145 Morrison Street. Ms. Ellis owns the building, valued at $2.8 million. Current rental income, $200,000 annually. Madison's mouth fell open. Wait, you own your building? Rebecca continued without acknowledging the interruption. Vacation property in Boulder, Colorado. Purchased 2 years ago for $1.1 million. Current value, $1.6 million. Commercial property in Austin, Texas. Mixed-use development purchased as investment. Current value, $4.3 million. The room had gone completely silent, except for Rebecca's voice. Angel investment in 17 startup companies. Estimated total value, $6.7 million, though this is conservative as 3 companies are currently in acquisition talks. She pulled out another document. Retirement accounts, $400,000. Vehicle assets. Ms. Ellis owns a Honda Civic, which you've seen, as well as a Tesla Model S, an Audi A6, and a vintage Porsche 911 currently in climate-controlled storage. Combined value approximately $300,000. Catherine looked like she might be sick. Art collection, $1.2 million.
Primarily emerging artists, held both for enjoyment and investment. She closed the folder. Total disclosed assets, $52.4 million, give or take, depending on market fluctuations. No one moved. No one spoke. Gerald finally broke the silence. That's quite substantial. Yes, Rebecca agreed. Now, Mr. Whitmore's disclosed assets are $850,000 in trust funds and a 25% stake in Whitmore Dental Group, valued at approximately $300,000, plus annual salary of $400,000. Total net worth approximately $1.5 million, assuming no undisclosed debt. She let that hang in the air. Catherine found her voice first. This has to be a mistake. It's not, I said quietly. First time I'd spoken since the meeting started. You don't drive a Honda if you have $50 million, Madison said, like she'd caught me in a lie. I drive a Honda because I like it. Reliable, good gas mileage. I don't need to announce my net worth with my vehicle choices. The apartment, Catherine started. I bought the building 2 years ago, liked the neighborhood. The other units provide good rental income. I live there because I want to, not because I have to. Robert was doing math on his legal pad. So, without a prenup, if you divorced, Marcus would be entitled to half of... Community property laws are complex, Rebecca interrupted smoothly. But yes, assets acquired during marriage could be subject to division, which is why a prenup makes sense, to protect Ms. Ellis's premarital wealth. The power dynamic in the room had completely inverted. Catherine looked like she'd been slapped. Robert kept staring at his notes like the numbers might change if he looked hard enough. Madison had gone pale under her makeup. Gerald cleared his throat. Perhaps we should revise the agreement to better reflect the actual, financial situation. Perhaps, Rebecca agreed. Catherine stood up abruptly. I need air. Marcus, can we talk outside? Marcus looked at me. I nodded. He followed his mother out. Madison turned to me the second the door closed. Why didn't you say anything? Why did you let us think? Think what? Madison. That I was poor? Beneath you? Marrying your brother for his money? We didn't think that. Yes, you did. You've thought it for 3 years. Every comment about my car, my clothes, my background, every Kohl's gift card and offer to help with wedding costs. You thought I was a gold digger. We were just being protective, Robert said weakly. No, you were being snobs. There's a difference. Marcus and Catherine returned 15 minutes later. Catherine's perfect makeup was smudged. She'd been crying. Marcus looked uncomfortable but determined. We need to apologize. Marcus, Robert started. No, Dad, this is ridiculous. Jordan has been nothing but gracious for 3 years, while you've all treated her like she was trying to scam me. You didn't even bother to ask about her career, her success, her life. You just assumed. We didn't know, Catherine said small. You didn't ask, I corrected. Every time Marcus mentioned my work, you changed the subject. You weren't interested in who I was, only in what you thought I was. Madison squirmed in her seat. We might have been presumptuous. You were cruel, Marcus said flatly. The Kohl's gift card? Really, Mom? Catherine flinched. That was meant to be practical. It was meant to remind her that she wasn't good enough for this family. Except she's more successful than any of us. She's built something real while we've been coasting on Dad's dental practice. Robert's face went red. Now, that's not fair. It's completely fair. Jordan built a company from nothing and sold it for tens of millions of dollars. She's been investing in growing that wealth ever since. She's a genuine self-made success story, and we treated her like garbage because she didn't feel the need to broadcast it. The room fell silent again. Rebecca pulled out a new document. I've prepared a revised prenuptial agreement. It protects Ms. Ellis's premarital assets and clearly delineates Mr. Whitmore's assets. Both parties retain what they brought to the marriage. Assets acquired jointly during marriage are split equitably in the event of divorce. Standard stuff, but properly reflective of the actual financial situation. She slid copies across the table. There's also a confidentiality clause. Ms. Ellis's financial information doesn't get discussed outside this room. Not with friends, not at cocktail parties, not with your country club set. Catherine looked like she wanted to argue, but Gerald was already nodding. That's reasonable, and honestly, given the circumstances, probably generous. I don't want Marcus's money. I never did. But I'm also not going to be treated like I'm less than because of where I came from. The prenup protects both of us. But more importantly, it makes clear that I don't need anything from this family except respect.
The meeting ended shortly after. Rebecca and I left first. In the parking lot, she grinned. That was even better than I expected. Did you see Catherine's face? I see a lot of shocked faces in my line of work. That was top 5. I unlocked my Honda. Rebecca looked at it and laughed. You really do just like this car. It's paid off, reliable, gets me where I need to go. You're an enigma, Jordan Ellis. I just don't need to prove anything to anyone. Except today, apparently. Today wasn't about proving. Today was about correcting the record. She drove off in her BMW. I sat in my Honda for a moment, processing everything. My phone buzzed. Text from Marcus. Are you okay? I'm fine. Are you? My mother is having a breakdown in the car. Madison is in shock. Dad keeps doing math. I think we broke them. Good. I'm sorry. For all of it. For not standing up sooner, for letting them treat you that way. We'll talk tonight. Love you. Love you too. And Jordan, I'm proud of you. For building what you built. For staying humble despite it. For finally making them see you. I smiled and drove home to my building that they thought was just an apartment. Parked in my spot, took the elevator to my unit, and for the first time in 3 years, I felt like I could breathe around the Whitmore family. That night, Marcus came over. We sat on my couch, the one Catherine had once called vintage in a tone that made clear she meant old, and talked for hours. My family is going to be unbearable now, he said. Now? He laughed. Fair point, but I mean, they're going to overcompensate, try to suck up to you. My mother is already texting about how we should have the wedding at the country club. Her treat. Hard pass. I figured. What do you want to do about the wedding? I want small, intimate, people who actually care about us, not people who want to be seen. So half the guest list gets cut? Probably more than half. He was quiet for a moment. I don't think Madison should be a bridesmaid anymore. I looked at him. You sure? She's been awful to you. I've been making excuses, but after today, hearing it all laid out, I can't pretend anymore. That's going to cause drama. Everything causes drama with my family. Might as well have drama with boundaries. I leaned against him. I don't want to come between you and your family. You're not coming between us. They did that themselves. You just exposed it. The next few weeks were interesting. Catherine called me 3 times, which was 3 times more than she'd called in 3 years. Wanted to get to know me better. Suggested lunch, coffee, shopping. I declined politely. Madison sent a long text apologizing for any misunderstandings and hoping we could start fresh. I didn't respond. Robert sent a stiff email welcoming me officially to the family and mentioning that if I ever wanted to discuss investment opportunities in the dental practice, he'd be open to it. I forwarded it to Rebecca, who replied, absolutely not. Marcus's extended family started treating me differently too.
His aunt suddenly remembered she'd always liked me. His uncle wanted to discuss my investment strategy. His cousin asked if I was hiring for my portfolio companies. Everyone wanted something now that they knew I had something to give. It was exhausting and predictable, and exactly why I'd kept my wealth private in the first place. We signed the prenup 4 weeks later, a private signing with just Rebecca, Gerald, Marcus, and me. No parents, no siblings, no drama. The agreement was exactly what Rebecca had proposed. My premarital assets stayed mine. His stayed his. Anything we built together would be split fairly if, God forbid, we ever divorced. "Do you think we'll need this?" Marcus asked. "No, but it protects both of us, and it makes clear that I'm not here for your money." Which is hilarious given that you have 60 times more than I do. 52 million isn't 60 times 1.5 million. It's close enough to make my point. Rebecca packed up her briefcase. "You two are going to be fine. The prenup isn't about distrust. It's about clarity. And Jordan, if you ever want to tell the Whitmores exactly where they can shove their assumptions, you have my full legal support." We all laughed, but there was truth in it too. The wedding planning became a test of boundaries. Catherine wanted a big wedding at the country club, 300 guests, full orchestra, designer, everything. We chose a small vineyard in Sonoma, 75 guests, string quartet, simple elegance. Madison expected to be maid of honor, despite 3 years of snide comments. I asked my college roommate and business partner instead, the woman who actually been there for me. Robert assumed he'd walk me down the aisle, since your father is probably not comfortable in formal settings. My dad walked me down the aisle in a suit he bought himself, with pride in his eyes and no shame about where he came from. Every decision was a statement, not about money, but about respect, about choosing people who chose me first. The Whitmores fought every choice at first. Then slowly, as they realized I wasn't budging, they backed down. Catherine tried once more. "Jordan, dear, I really think a bigger wedding would be more appropriate given your resources." My resources paid for the wedding I wanted, not the wedding you think I should want. But people will expect whatever you tell them to expect, and I don't care. Marcus squeezed my hand under the table. We'd become a team in ways we hadn't been before, united front against his family's expectations. 2 months before the wedding, Madison called me. Not texted, actually called. "Can we talk in person?" We met at a coffee shop. She looked nervous, less polished than usual. "I owe you a real apology. Not the text message kind, the actual face-to-face, I was completely wrong kind." I waited. "I was terrible to you. For years. And I told myself it was because I was protective of Marcus, but really, it was because I was jealous." "Jealous? Of how you and Marcus were together. How real it was. I married my husband because he came from money and my parents approved. We barely like each other. Meanwhile, you and Marcus actually love each other, and I tried to poison that because I was bitter about my own choices. I hadn't expected honesty. Thank you for telling me that. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I know how wrong I was, and I'm sorry." We talked for another hour. It wasn't a magic fix. Years of cruelty don't disappear with one conversation, but it was a start. "Can I ask you something?" Madison said as we were leaving. "Sure." "How did you do it? Build something from nothing?" "I worked constantly, failed a lot, got back up, found the right partner, and never let anyone tell me I couldn't because of where I came from. I wish I'd done something like that. It's not too late." She smiled sadly. "Maybe not, but it feels like it sometimes." The week before the wedding, my parents came to town. I'd been avoiding this meeting, my working-class parents, meeting Marcus's upper-class parents. We all had dinner together. My dad in his Sears suit, my mom in a dress from Macy's, Catherine and Robert in whatever designer labels they'd chosen to impress. I watched Catherine assess my parents with barely concealed judgment, watched my mom notice and hold her head higher anyway. "So you're in construction?" Robert asked my dad, tone implying he was making polite conversation with someone beneath him. 28 years, Dad said. Built half the commercial buildings downtown. "And you clean houses?" Catherine asked my mom, not even trying to hide the condescension. "I own a cleaning business," Mom corrected. "Started with just me. Now I have 15 employees and contracts with 6 office buildings." Catherine's smile froze. Even working-class jobs could be entrepreneurial successes. She hadn't expected that. "Jordan gets her business sense from you," Marcus said to my parents. "The willingness to start small and build something real." My dad squeezed my hand under the table. "She always was smart. Smarter than both of us combined." "We're very proud of her," Mom added. "Always have been." I felt tears prick my eyes, because that was the difference. My parents were proud of me whether I had $50 million or $50. The Whitmore's approval came with a price tag. The rehearsal dinner was the night before the wedding. Small group, immediate family and wedding party only. Catherine stood up to give a toast. I braced myself. When Marcus first told me about Jordan, I'll admit, I had concerns. She was different from what I had imagined for my son. Different background, different experiences, different lifestyle. Here we go, I thought.
She looked directly at me. "Jordan, you've built something remarkable. Not just your career, but your character. You could have thrown your success in our faces when we underestimated you. Instead, you maintained grace and dignity while we showed none." Her voice cracked slightly. "I'm sorry for the assumptions, for the judgment, for making you feel less than when you've always been extraordinary. My son is lucky to have you, and if you'll let me, I'd like the chance to be a better mother-in-law than I've been a future one." It wasn't perfect, didn't erase 3 years of cruelty, but it was something. I raised my glass. To new beginnings. Everyone drank to that. The wedding day was perfect. Sunny California weather, vineyard views stretching to the horizon. 75 people who genuinely loved us. I wore a dress that cost half what Catherine had budgeted for flowers. Looked beautiful anyway. My dad walked me down the aisle with tears streaming down his face. "That's my girl," he whispered. "My smart, successful, amazing girl." Marcus cried when he saw me. Real tears, not wedding tears. The ceremony was simple. Personal vows we'd written ourselves. No religious platitudes or generic promises. Just us, our love, our future. At the reception, I danced with my dad. He held me like I was still his little girl. "You turned out better than I ever imagined," he said. I had good examples. Your mother and I, we couldn't give you money or connections, but we gave you something better. What's that? We never made you feel like you had to prove your worth. You knew you were valued just for being you. That's the best inheritance we could give." I hugged him tighter. It was more than enough. Later that night, Catherine approached me at the bar. "Can I ask you something? And please be honest." "Okay. Why did you let it go on so long? The assumptions, the condescension. You could have shut it down years ago." I thought about how to answer that. Because I needed to know Marcus loved me, not for what I'm worth. And honestly, I needed to see who you all really were. People's true character shows when they think you can't benefit them. And what did our character show? That you care more about appearances than substance, more about what someone has than who they are, and that you're willing to be cruel to someone you perceive as beneath you.
She flinched. That's harsh. It's honest. You asked for honesty. We're trying to do better. I know. That's why I didn't cut you out entirely, but trying isn't the same as succeeding. That takes time and consistent behavior. Fair enough. She paused. For what it's worth, I am genuinely proud to have you as a daughter-in-law. Not because of your money, because of who you are. I'll believe that when your actions match your words. That's fair too. Marcus and I left for our honeymoon the next day. 2 weeks in New Zealand, completely disconnected from family drama and prenup negotiations and all of it. On a beach in Queenstown, he asked me something I'd been waiting for. Do you regret how it all went down? The prenup reveal, the confrontation? No. Do you? No. I just wish I'd stood up for you sooner, before it got to that point. You stood up when it mattered. I should have stood up from the beginning. I took his hand. We can't change the past, but we can learn from it. What did you learn? That quiet wealth is powerful. That assumptions say more about the people making them than the people they're about. And that I don't need anyone's approval except my own. And yours? Yours is a bonus. He laughed, kissed me, and we watched the sun set over the ocean, our futures stretching out ahead like the horizon. We returned from our honeymoon to a new normal. The Whitmores were trying, awkwardly, imperfectly, but genuinely. Catherine invited me to lunch and actually asked about my work, listened instead of judging. Robert stopped asking about investment opportunities and started asking about my parents. Madison and I weren't close, but we were cordial. That was enough. Marcus and I bought a house. Not a mansion, just a nice 4-bedroom in a good neighborhood. Place we could grow into, start a family, build a life. I kept investing, kept building wealth, but I also started doing more with it. Started a scholarship fund for first-generation college students studying computer science. Named it after my parents, who'd given me more than money could ever. Funded 3 startups run by women from working-class backgrounds. Gave them the opportunities investors had initially denied me. Anonymously paid off medical debt for families at the hospital where I'd been treated as a kid when we couldn't afford healthcare. Money is just a tool. What matters is what you build with it. A year after the wedding, we hosted Thanksgiving at our house. Both families together for the first time since the wedding. My dad and Robert discovered they both loved woodworking. Spent 2 hours in the garage looking at my dad's projects. My mom and Catherine talked about their businesses, found unexpected common ground. Madison pulled me aside. I enrolled in business school, part-time while my kids are young, but I'm actually doing it. That's amazing. You inspired me. Watching you build something from nothing while everyone doubted you, I want that. My own thing, not just my husband's money. You can do it. I hope so. At dinner, my dad raised his glass. I want to toast my daughter. Jorvin was always smart, always determined, but she was also always kind, even when people didn't deserve it. That's the real success, not the money, the character. Everyone drank, including the Whitmores, who'd learned exactly what my dad meant. 2 years after the wedding, Marcus and I welcomed our first child, a daughter. Catherine came to visit in the hospital, brought a gift, not from a fancy store, but handmade, a quilt she'd sewn herself. I wanted to make her something meaningful. Not expensive, meaningful. It was one of the nicest gifts I'd ever received. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you for giving me another chance, for letting me be part of this. You're her grandmother. Of course you're part of this. Even after how I treated you, people can change. You're proof of that.
She held her granddaughter for the first time, tears streaming down her face. She's perfect, absolutely perfect. She is. What's her name? Marcus and I exchanged a glance. Eleanor Ruth, after both our grandmothers. Catherine's breath caught. You're naming her after my mother? And mine. They were both strong women who built something from nothing. Seemed fitting. She cried harder, held that baby like she was the most precious thing in the world. And maybe in that moment, Catherine finally understood. That value isn't measured in money or status or where someone comes from. It's measured in love, integrity, and the legacy we leave. My dad stood beside me, looking at his granddaughter. You did good, kiddo. We did good, Dad. You and Mom gave me everything I needed to get here. We just loved you. That was everything. Today, 5 years after that prenup meeting, I'm sitting in my backyard watching Eleanor play with her little brother James. Marcus is grilling. Both sets of grandparents are coming over for dinner. My net worth has grown to $78 million. My Honda Civic finally died, and I replaced it with another Honda Civic. I still live relatively modestly, still invest quietly, still build wealth without announcing it. But I've also learned to use that wealth meaningfully. The scholarship fund has sent 43 students to college. The startups I funded have created 200 jobs. The medical debt I've forgiven has saved 17 families from bankruptcy. Catherine and I will never be best friends, but we've reached a place of mutual respect. She volunteers with my scholarship fund now, uses her country club connections to raise money for first-generation students. Madison finished her MBA, started her own consulting business. We have lunch once a month, and she actually asks me for advice now instead of judging my clothes. Robert and my dad built a workshop together in our garage, spend hours working on projects. Two men from different worlds finding common ground in sawdust and shared creativity. My mom and Catherine run a joint charity, combining my mom's practical organizing skills with Catherine's fundraising connections. They're actually friends now, which none of us saw coming. Marcus and I are happy, building a life based on love, not money, raising kids who understand that wealth is a responsibility, not an identity, teaching them that where you come from matters less than where you're going. Every year on our anniversary, Marcus and I joke about the prenup, about the look on his family's face when Rebecca revealed my assets, about how they'd wanted to protect him from me when the reality was exactly backwards. Do you ever regret it? Revealing everything? You liked your privacy. I regret that it was necessary, but I don't regret doing it. Sometimes people need to see the truth to understand what they've been missing. They certainly see you now. They see what they're ready to see. Took them a while to get there. He kisses me. I always saw you. I know. That's why I said yes. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters. Not the prenup or the net worth or the shocked faces in that conference room. What matters is finding someone who sees you clearly, loves you completely, and chooses you regardless of what you're worth on paper. The Whitmores thought they were protecting their son from a gold digger. What they didn't understand was that I never needed anything from Marcus except his heart. Everything else, I had already built myself. And that's the thing about assumptions. They say everything about the person making them and nothing about the person they're aimed at. Catherine assumed I was after money because that's how she measured worth. Madison assumed I was beneath them because that's what made her feel superior. Robert assumed my parents were less than because he needed someone to look down on. But assumptions are just stories we tell ourselves to avoid seeing the truth. And the truth was always right there. I was successful, independent, self-made, building an empire while they counted their dental practice profits and pretended old money was the same as real wealth. When I think about that prenup meeting now, I don't think about revenge or vindication. I think about liberation. Liberation from trying to prove myself to people who'd already decided I wasn't enough. Liberation from caring what they thought. Liberation from hiding who I really was because I was afraid of how they'd treat me if they knew. The prenup didn't protect Marcus from me. It protected me from them. From their expectations, their judgments, their narrow definitions of success. And more importantly,
It showed me exactly who was in my corner. Marcus, who stood up to his family. My parents, who loved me regardless of my bank balance. Rebecca, who enjoyed watching assumptions crumble. My business partner, my friends, the people who had been there before anyone knew I was worth anything. Those are the people that matter, not the ones who suddenly respect you when they learn you're rich, but the ones who respected you when they thought you were broke. If you've ever been underestimated because of where you came from, remember this. Their assumptions are their problem, not yours. You don't owe anyone an explanation of your worth. You don't need to broadcast your success to validate it. Build quietly, succeed loudly when necessary, and surround yourself with people who see you clearly, not just people who see your bank balance. The Whitmores thought they were protecting their son from my modest wealth, from my imagined greed. Instead, they got a legally binding reminder that they'd spent 3 years being cruel to someone who never needed anything from them. That's not revenge. That's just karma with excellent legal representation. And every time I sign another investment check, or fund another scholarship, or help another working-class kid who reminds me of myself, I think about that moment. The silence in the conference room, the look on Catherine's face. The realization that they'd had it backwards all along. I smile, pour my daughter some juice, and watch Marcus chase our son around the yard. And I'm grateful. Not for the money, though it's allowed me to build something meaningful. Not for the vindication, though watching assumptions crumble was satisfying. I'm grateful for the lesson that true wealth isn't counted in dollars. It's counted in integrity, character, and knowing your worth regardless of whether anyone else recognizes it. The Whitmores thought they were protecting their son. Instead, they got a masterclass in why you should never assume you're the richest person in the room. And honestly, that lesson was priceless. Comment below, have you ever been underestimated because of your background? Share your story. Share this with someone who needs to hear that where you come from doesn't determine where you're going. Because the best revenge isn't proving people wrong, it's succeeding so completely that their opinion becomes irrelevant.